Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining me for Handle Security Patch Management dedicated session. My name is Alina Marier. I'm the webinar program manager at Handle Security, and I will be your host for this event. Before we get started, please allow me to share a few things about myself. I'm very passionate about anything that's related to technology, and I'm a strong believer and supporter of every individual's and company's rights to privacy and a carefree digital life. I've been previously employed by companies such as HP, Oracle, and Optimize, taking on different roles in IT security, um, compliance, and I'm sorry, information technology. On a more personal note, I enjoy gaming, reading, and among other things, I'm also passionate about cars, photography, and traveling. It's a real pleasure to have you all here, so thank you very much for joining. Here's the agenda for today. We're going to talk a little bit about who we are. Then we're going to approach patch management and why is it important. We're going to talk about best practices, and then how can we help you automate the patch management process to have you save, time, money, and have a much more solid cybersecurity posture. And one last thing, if you have any questions during the webinar, feel free to type them into the question box of your GoToWebinar control panel. We'll have the Q&A dedicated time slot towards the end of the webinar. And also towards the end of the webinar, I have prepared a little surprise for you. I hope you guys will enjoy it. Now, let me give you a little bit of background about Handle Security. For those of you that haven't heard about us, we're a leading European provider of cloud-based cybersecurity. We've been recognized as a thought leader in the industry, and we won multiple international awards, both for our products and our educational material. The Handle name originates from the Northern mythology, where Handle is the guardian of the Bifrost. The Bifrost is the only way in and out of Asgard, the realm of the Norse gods. And if you're familiar with the Thor movies by Marvel, Heimdall was the ultimate guardian, the superhero in the gold-plated armor, if you remember, played by the actor Idris Elba. And our story as a company started back in 2011 at the DEF CON Capture the Flag challenge. And for those of you that are unaware with the competition, DEF CON Capture the Flag is basically a competition that gathers teams from all over the world. And of course, that includes teams from the likes of the FBI, the NSA, and many other security agencies and services. And it's a very pro competition, if you will. And there we had a handful of Danish tech geeks that actually had an idea that would have changed the world later on. And our team, very early in the competition, understood that instead of focusing on live interactions with the enemy team, they could instead focus their solution against the enemy team, blocking the path to their machine. And they successfully managed to do so by automatically patching any vulnerable third-party software that they had on their server, but also by monitoring all the DNS traffic that was used by the enemy team to get access into their server. And of course, our guys won. It was actually for the first time in the history of the competition when the Capture the Flag was won by a non-US team. And we actually managed to do that for 2 years in a row. And the intelligence that we gathered back then in 2011 and 2012 was then merged into the Handle core product, which later on became Thor Foresight. And in 2014, when we took the product to market, we were actually able to completely map out the malicious infrastructure that was used to deliver the original CryptoLocker ransomware. And we handed that intelligence over to the FBI, who in turn were able to ID the attackers, locate the malicious servers, and then put the entire cyber criminal organization behind CryptoLocker into behind bars, basically taken into custody. And it proved that the intelligence we provided to the FBI was crucial to the success of the operation. And of course, the FBI would later commend and endorse Heimdall for the role that we played in Operation CryptoLocker. Today, we're working alongside the Europol, the US Department of Justice, and the NC3, which is the Danish police cybercrime unit. and of course securing a safer digital world, both for our customers and businesses and consumers. And on a different note, we are honored to have been chosen by the Royal Bank of Scotland as their recommended cybersecurity solution for all their business customers. So that's a very short introduction about Heimdall Security. Now let's move on and talk about patch management. And traditional security solutions such as firewalls and antiviruses, they rely on detection mechanisms lacking crucial capabilities in order to prevent, not react to advanced threats. And this is why patching becomes a vital requirement in today's cybersecurity threatscape. Of course, together with other layers of enterprise protection like DNS filtering, privileged access management, and advanced email security. But to better understand the patch management process, we need to understand what is a patch. And we have a more detailed definition on this slide. But to put it simply, a patch is a piece of software code that enhances or covers a gap within an installed computer program. Just like when you have a wound and apply a bandage to it, in the same way, developers apply patches to computer software to cover vulnerabilities or maybe enhance the program or the software functionality. And generally, software patches can be categorized into 3 different buckets. We have the feature patches that are used to improve the functionality of the software and maybe add additional capabilities. We have bug fix patches. These address certain errors found in the software, maybe making it run smoother or maybe prevent crashes. And then we have security patches that enhance the security of an application or software by correcting known software vulnerabilities and basically covering holes in the computer systems, of course preventing malicious actors from exploiting those flows and compromising organizations and individuals. And of course, patches can be deployed to the entire infrastructure. That includes, software, operating systems, routers, IoT equipment, servers, and so on. And then we have patch management. And here is the definition as stated by an IST. But to put it simply, again, because vulnerabilities are often found in IT systems and software developers routinely release security patches to fix those flaws before they end up being exploited. The patch management process is the process that helps determine, acquire, test, and install patches on existing applications or software on an endpoint. And a software vulnerability appears when a release software code is flawed or deprecated, meaning that malicious actors can exploit it. The problem is that every time a vulnerability is discovered, it may be publicly disclosed. And when that happens, an exploit code may soon follow. And the means to taking advantage of an existing vulnerability are called exploit kits. And these are published or sold on underground markets by hackers, or published as proof of concepts by security researchers who attempt to demonstrate how those security flaws could be leveraged. And a zero-day exploit can occur when the POC's exploit code is revealed prior to a vulnerability being patched, which means that zero-day flaws basically arise after a security vulnerability is discovered and before the vendor gets the chance to cover that, to patch it. According to a recent report, around 2 out of 3 exploited vulnerabilities have associated exploit kits or code. And at the same time, whenever an exploit code is publicly revealed, chances are 7 times higher that we see exploitation in the wild compared to the code not being published. Sorry about that. And as cybersecurity threats are becoming more and more prevalent, it really goes without saying that all organizations must be secured from multiple angles. And in fact, Gartner predicted that 99% of the vulnerabilities exploited by the end of 2020 will continue to be the ones that are known by security and IT professionals at the time of the cyber threat incident. So patch management is really one of the main steps towards top-notch cybersecurity. But we understand that patch management is a process that's both crucial and time-consuming, and because of this, many organizations are failing to apply this process and the patches at the speed and the size required by today's cybersecurity threatscape. And we know manual patches is hell, and I think any system administrator can attest this. Moreover, there's this thing called the patching paradox, where companies discovered that even as they assign more people to the task of patching, the process is done even slower than before. And on average, it takes organizations a staggering 67 days to apply a patch. And even more dramatic is the fact that 80% of all data breaches suffered by companies could have been prevented if patching was done in a timely fashion. On the operations side, there are studies that show that a team assigned to carry out the patching need at least 12 days to deploy new released patches across all devices. And also, in 55% of the cases, companies or teams rely on manual patching regardless of the size, the number of the machines, and the type of the patch. And that's why automated patch management has become the golden standard for enterprises for a while now, and that's both from a security standpoint, but also from an ROI standpoint if you consider all the man hours that could be saved after implementing an automated solution. And justifiable, implementing an automated patch management system ends up being less expensive than not having anything in the first place. Imagine what would happen if, say your organization or your company's database would fall into the hands of the hackers who managed to find a way around your security, maybe through an unpatched application. So to sum up, the primary purpose of patch management is to protect your organization and avoid having unplanned downtime, basically taking a proactive approach to this process. And now I'm going to share 6 best practices to help you improve efficiency and the effectiveness of your patch management process. And the first one is asset inventory. And this really should be the first step in your patch management process. It's very important to know what are your assets and how to keep track of all your hardware and software so that you basically are aware of what needs to be patched. And the patch management highly depends on keeping a full inventory of all the software on each endpoint, but at the same time, it's really important to not only have just the name of the software or the machine where that's installed, but also what version that software is, and the number of installs of that particular version, so that you are then aware of what would need to be patched on different endpoints. Another key aspect of patch management is, of course, having a patch schedule, and that's really important to be very clear and have a strategy around that as well. Because when patches are going to be applied, it's really important to know that that's available to you, and you can really go through that process very thoroughly. And it should be a continuous process as well. And with our exploit resilience, we can really help you save a lot of that time and resources by basically having a schedule to your patches and basically applying them at any time from anywhere in the world according to any schedule. Timely patch deployment is also crucial, and the release to install time could depend on the severity of the vulnerability that's being discovered, and of course the time that's spent testing. However, patching should be delayed as little as possible or not at all if that's an option, as unaddressed vulnerabilities could have dire consequences. And we were talking about testing a little bit earlier. That's another best practice that we recommend, because sometimes installing patches without testing them first could lead to serious disruption, and that's why it shouldn't be skipped. This takes time, of course, of your IT staff to test all the new patches before pushing them to the environments. But when a patch damages something that's already in production and needs to be rolled back, it could lead to missing deadlines for the patching, but also having employees that could have potential downtime and be unproductive because of that. So make sure that you allow enough time for the patching and the testing of those patching before basically deploying them to the production environments. Reporting is a step that's needed in order to be able to assess how successful the patch management process is, of course. And without this, you won't be able to have that comprehensive analysis over your process over the period of time. That's kind of leaving you without knowing where you have gaps or where you need to make adjustments or improve. And with our automated patch management solution, Exploit Resilience, you will be able to have a very extensive vulnerability intelligence, and you'll be able to see all of the software that's been patched, as well as intervene on certain endpoints if that's needed. And our patching and reporting system works from anywhere in the world, basically, and I'll show you that in a couple of minutes. They're within full compliance, and they provide you with a CVE, CVSS, audit trail, and of course, if needed, extensive lifetime history reporting that we could make available through either Excel spreadsheets or API. And then we have the automation part, and of course, I've mentioned throughout this session that patch management can be done either manually or automatically. Of course, the manual part wastes a lot of your time and resources and makes the entire patch management process a true burden for system administrators. And according to a Ponemon State of Vulnerability report, 64% of organizations say that they plan to hire more people on the vulnerability response team, although the average head count is already at 28. That represent around 29% of all security human resources. And nearly 65% of companies say that it's currently too difficult for them to decide correctly on the priority of each software patch, basically determining which update is of critical importance and should be applied first. And in the best scenario, security and IT professionals define priorities by simply following the CVSS scoring. And while that scoring for the patching it's reliable, having an automated patch management solution will obviously clear your staff schedule, and it will allow them to focus on other tasks or efforts, concentrate their efforts basically on other priorities instead of just manually deploying patches or on your endpoints. So how can we help? As I kept mentioning throughout the webinar, we can help you with all of that with our Exploit Resilience automated patch management solution. And Exploit Resilience is basically the most scalable, the most flexible, and very easy to use software and patch management solution that's available on the market right now. It is extremely easy to configure. We have set and forget type of settings for automatic deployment of software and updates, and we can do that both for Windows and third-party application. And as I said, it also has full compliance and CVE and CVSS audit trail. And to show you how this works, I'm going to jump out of the PowerPoint presentation and straight into a live tour of our fantastic dashboard, of course, focusing on Exploit Resilience. So bear with me for a second. All right, hope you guys can see my screen. Right, so in order to log in, I'm going to put in my credentials. Of course, we also employ, as we preach, two-factor authentication as well. I'm going to just type in my code real quick. Right, and now we are straight into our dashboard, if you will, the Unified Threat dashboard. And here, before getting into more details, I'm going to kind of help set up the navigation, if you will. On the left-hand side, we have this navigation pane from where you would be able to basically go to any of the modules that you have enabled from Heimdall. And we also have these reports for each of the modules. And from here as well, you would be able to drill down. So I'm going to describe briefly each of these modules. So Tor Foresight with Dog Layer Guard and Vector and Detection. Basically, this is our unique threat prevention proposition, where with our agent, we can get the filtering of the incoming or outgoing traffic on any endpoint, whether that's perimeter-based with Forseti or endpoint-based with Tor Foresight. Then we have the exploit resilience that I'm going to focus a little bit more in a couple of minutes. We have for vigilance as well, which is our next-gen antivirus, providing you with information about the number of affected files, firewall alerts, or you can see the firewall rules, as well as the quarantine files on your machines. And then we have admin privilege, which gives the admins the power to easily control the user rights escalation and de-escalation process. And it's also the only de-escalation upon infection tool available on the market. So whenever one of our modules is going to detect a threat or an infection on an endpoint, the user rights, if those are escalated, going to be automatically de-escalated. Or if that endpoint that's infected would ask for escalation of the user rights, we, of course, we're going to block that. Then we also have email security and spam filter and the email fraud prevention that are going to really take care of all of the spam that you may receive, but also look into the more sophisticated type of approaches that hackers are doing right now, such as the SEO fraud. And that's a very quick overview of the reports that we see on the screen. Now I'm going to focus more on the exploit resilience, as I promised. And for that, and as with the other products or the modules that we have available from us, starts with the group policies. So for that, I'm going to go into settings. And here is basically where you would be able to define the group policies and set up the rules for each of those group policies and for the endpoints that are going to be falling under those specific group policies for different operating systems. So for this particular tour, I'm going to go into handle support one. Just kind of give you a flavor of how that looks like. So we're going to be in the settings of a group policy. And of course, we're going to have some general settings here, setting up the policy name, the language, whether, we're going to put in the AD computer group or the user group. Basically, whenever a user logs into a computer, the policy begins to be applied, or whenever a machine is going to come online, the policy is going to be applied. And then we have policy check interval and licensing check interval. This feature also checks if the policy is applied correctly on the machines, and the option is decide to push the policy on all the computers at a specified set interval. So you can see it here. These are adjustable, so you can just slide these sliders left or right, basically to increase or decrease the time frame in which this policy should be reinforced. And then you can set alerts for the CPU thresholds or the memory thresholds as well. We have some proxy settings that we can set up here into this group policy, as well as some admin settings, including the option to enable the peer-to-peer transfer of patches or software instead of just downloading them from the cloud. So once you kind of save the settings, in order to save that, you're just going to update the policy. But then we're going to concentrate on exploit resilience. As I said, I'm going to go into Tor Foresight, as exploit resilience is one of the modules that sum up our Tor Foresight offering. We have settings for Dark Layer Guard and vector detection as well. For exploit resilience, as I mentioned, we also support third-party application, but Microsoft updates as well. And for the first step, I'm going to jump into the third-party application settings. And here is where you would be able to enable the third-party application module, whether you want to enable the Infinity Management, which is the unique add-on to exploit resilience that basically allows to deploy custom software or patches at any location, at any time, using our cloud delivery network and encrypted packages and transfer, basically requiring no additional infrastructure from your side. And then if we enable the assets view, this will give you the option to visualize, and I'll show you how that looks like as well, to visualize all of the applications that are installed on all of your endpoints. But not only that, it's going to include, how many times a specific version of an application is installed on a machine as well. And here we also have an option to whether we want to keep all applications up to date without basically manually selecting which ones do we want to keep up to date from this manage application section, or whether we only want to see the Infinity Management application. Basically, that means that you will only be able to visualize the applications that are your own, basically not supported by us yet. So to describe the manage application options that we see here, I could go to the applications in gray, highlighted in gray here, are custom applications that have been enabled through Infinity Management, and the rest are applications that we support. So you have a couple of options here, whether you want to install all of the application from your install base to the endpoints that fall under this group policy, whether to update all or allow install all. But what we recommend is basically to take this approach on a step-by-step and kind of determine which application should always be updated. Maybe there are specific versions that could be locked down. So for instance, for 7-zip, you can lock it down. There are multiple versions that we support, but if for some reason you need to lock down a specific version on an application, you can do so from here. If you check the allow install application and not install, this will allow the users to actually go into their for agent on their machine, and they're going to have a list of applications there that they're going to be able to open, and from that list, they would be able to install whatever application you allow them to through this view, basically, without requiring admin rights. So they won't bother sysadmins or people in support to, I need admin rights to install this application or that application. And if needed, testing, as I said before, is really important as well. If you need to test the patches before you deploy them or to specific endpoints, we can also allow that flexibility, and basically you can start delaying the install of a patch, and we have a couple of options that you can choose from here. If we go a little bit down below, there are some other options as well, like the check interval. So this is just going to check the frequency. This is basically the frequency at which the Thor agent is going to check for new patches. Whether we want to speed up the process of machines when they reboot. So this delay patching startup, this is what it does. It's basically going to delay applying a patch on a specific or on the endpoints that are falling under this group policy with the time frame that you're going to select from here. And also, we have the application blacklist. I think some of you are going to really love that, because whenever an application is added to the list and the policy is being checked on the machines, we're going to automatically uninstall it from that endpoint. As I was mentioning a little bit earlier, we can enable a patching schedule. So for here, we're going to be able to give you a lot of flexibility in when the patches that you have decided can be applied. You can choose a weekday or multiple, or maybe a specific day of the month, if you will, and then an interval in which either the patches are going to be applied, or the patching process is going to be inactive. So if you don't want to have your employees, I don't know, bothered by the patching process, you can really do the patching whenever they're outside their working schedule. And of course, for the settings to take effect, you just click on the update policy, and then it's going to immediately take effect. And that's for the settings for the third-party application. Now, if I go into the Microsoft updates, you're going to see it's pretty familiar interface as with the third party. And we also have a couple of different options here as well. Of course, whether we want to enable the Microsoft updates, or if you're going to check the Microsoft vulnerability reporting only box, that's only going to monitor the patches that are available from Microsoft, but it's not going to apply anything. There's also a little eye icon here. And whenever you see this, if you're unsure what that does, you can just hover over it and it's going to tell you, very comprehensively whatever you need to do or what that specific option does. On the general settings, again, some flexibility options, whether you want to install just the updates that require no restart or just install everything and suppress the reboot of the machines, whether you want for agent to notify the endpoint users that their machine is going to be rebooted or requires a reboot. Or you can also choose to have enable installation by category. So if you want certain type of app categories or updates to be installed on those endpoints, you can just choose the ones that suit your needs the best, and then only those type of patches are going to be installed on those machines. And of course, for this, down below, there's also the type of settings we've seen for the third-party applications. How frequent should we check for updates? Whether we want to delay applying the Windows updates, whether we want to enable a schedule for the Windows updates as well. But also, what we can do is actually set up a reboot schedule. And again, you can choose any day of the week or multiple or a day of the month. Or you can even choose to have a forced reboot during the time selection. So all the endpoints that are going to be under this group policy, they're going to be restarted if that option is going to be enabled. And again, choosing the time interval, it's an option here in which the patch management of the Windows is going to be active or inactive. Also, we know it's very important to not have specific users being interrupted by the reboot process. So we can enable a reboot delay, and you can define from here just how many minutes that reboot delay is going to be set up basically, and also just how many times a user is going to be able to postpone the reboot of their machine. Maybe they're doing some critical work or they're in a meeting or something like that. And of course, we don't want users to be interrupted by that. Right, quick overview of the settings. Now I'm gonna go back home in the dashboard. And from here, as I said, I have a couple of options of navigating to exploit resilience or any other module. I can do it from the left-hand navigation pane, or if I click on the more details button from this report. So diving into Thor Foresight here, we're now at the management and reporting part for Thor Foresight for the third-party updates. And of course, we're going to have a quick overview of current number of vulnerabilities, how many patches we applied, and that's going to be only from the time frame selected here at the top. Number of software updated, number of software that we're monitoring, and this is the standard view. So here you can apply different type of filters, if you will, the latest status, latest patch, what's currently vulnerable, what's been historically vulnerable, what's up to date, or we can see what applications have been uninstalled from all of these endpoints. So here is a pretty comprehensive view of that, providing you with what application has been installed from what version to one version, what was the date and what's the status of the machine. I'm gonna search for mine. Let's have a look at that. So mine, for my machine, I had Chrome 64 updated recently. There's also the CVE information available here, but also we allow for more information to be provided on any of the endpoints. So I can view machine info, I can view logs, and then depending on the modules that are going to have available from us, other type of options are going to be available in this ellipsis menu. And if I click on my machine, I'm going to go into general. It's going to provide me with a lot of information about this machine, including the modules that I have installed. Also, we have a status here, and now it's orange, and it's telling me that my computer has some issues. So, okay, this is because the memory is running at 62% currently, apparently. This way, you could go into very detailed information about any of your endpoints. Also, here's where you would view the assets view, and basically here's a list of all the applications that you have on your install base. It's going to tell you what's the name of the application, what's the version. So if we look at 7-zip, we have quite a few, and whether it's uninstallable by our agent or whether we support it. And of course, the number of machines where this particular version of the application is installed. And from here, you would be able to drill down and basically visualize those specific machines where this particular version of the application is installed as well. And if we support uninstall, you can just go from here and just uninstall it. And what you could do is perform a global uninstall that's going to apply to all group policies, or maybe if a specific application shouldn't be on specific endpoints that fall under a specific group policy, you can just do that from here, and this application is only going to be uninstalled from that particular from those endpoints that fall under that particular group policy that you selected here. Now, for the Infinity Management View, is basically where you would be adding your custom software and your custom patches for that software. So here's the list of all the custom applications. You have a couple of options here where you could just delete them. But if you want to add a new one, the process is very, very simple. You would go into View Private Patching Storage, see how much storage you have available, and then from here, you can download the Heimdal encryption tool. This is a piece of software that you would download on your machine. You would encrypt the file or the files that you would need to upload using our tool, and then you would just upload them very easily from your machine into our cloud delivery network. And then once you've done that, we'll go back and basically set up the new app. So add the new app. I'm going to put it a name here. So let's Webinar PM. What type of architecture it supports? Maybe that's 32 or 64 bits, or maybe both. I'm going to put both. You can add a custom expression, and we have a pretty comprehensive custom expression builder here. So I'm just going to select this, put in enter. I'm just going to save it for this example. So this is the application definition, and now is where you're going to basically set up that particular application. So set up application. I'm going to take you to put in the file that you've just uploaded and that I was showing you like a couple of seconds ago. Some of these fields are going to be automatically populated, as you see, and then you have a couple of options for before installing the application. Maybe you would like to uninstall all previous version, or after install, and of course choose the operating system that this application is going to be deployed on, and then you would just save it. And then that application is going to be available in the custom application here. So this is the new application that I just added. And then through the settings, you would be able to deploy to specific group policies and to specific endpoints on that fall under those group policies. And for the Microsoft update, of course, we have this management and reporting capabilities as well for the Microsoft updates. It's going to show us just how many updates have been installed, how many are available or pending, how many updates per endpoint, or whether the machines are compliant or not. So you can search for a title of an update, a specific type of product or a category. And as I was mentioning just a couple of minutes ago, you would also be able to download the logs in a CSV file if you ever need to use those for performing external reporting as well. And that was a very, very high-level overview of our exploit resilience platform. I hope you enjoyed it. Now I'm going to go back into my presentation, and we're going to dive into the Q&A session. So let me see. how many questions do I have here? All right. So one question is asking me if by taking allow and install and install all, can we deploy the supported software to the machines where the policy has been applied without uploading the exe MSI using Infinity Management? So yes, so that's a unique step that you will need to perform to update, to put in your custom software. So once you've added that application through Infinity Management, if you want to add your own custom software, what you will need to do is just go through that process once of adding that application to our cloud delivery network, basically. And from there, for each group policy where you would like to install that application, you would just check it and allow install, or just install that application, basically push it to the endpoints that fall under that specific group policy. Another question is asking me, once you install the agent, how long does it take for the patches to take place and to fetch the patches, both third party and Microsoft? So I'm going to answer these questions in two parts. For the patches that are already available in our cloud delivery network, it's going to take a minimum of 120 minutes until that group policy is going to check for the patch. But we have the shortest patch delivery time frame, if you will, in the world, which is 4 hours up until the vendor is going to publish the patch. We're going to take it, we're going to dissect it, we're going to look through it, we're going to test it, and then we're going to make it available in our cloud delivery network for patching purposes. Very good questions. What makes Heimdal different from others? That's a very good question, and I'm happy you asked. So Exploit Resilience is the only fully automated patch management solution that works without any need of admin interference or user interference. And it's going to work independently of your company's network. So compared to other vendors, we also support custom software deployment and patching, as well as third-party feature patches, not just security patches. And I have another question here that's asking me if the reports on the dashboard are real time. And yes, they are. But if you're in a particular view, managing a policy, for instance, or maybe looking in the standard view in the reporting of exploit resilience for third party, and maybe a patch is being deployed by the time you clicked on that, then obviously you're going to have to just refresh that page, and it's going to be available, and you're going to see the new patch application in that particular view as well. All right, so thank you very much for the questions. Now I'm going to go to the little surprise that I was promising you at the beginning of the webinar, and this is everyone who attended the webinar will be able and eligible to get a 90 days extended free trial of our products. This is something that you won't be able to get anywhere else. And you're also eligible for a free assessment of your organization's cybersecurity posture. So one of our consultants is going to be in touch with you in the next couple of days, either by phone or by email, to help you set up this process. And with that being said, I thank you very much for the time spent with me today. Thank you for the questions, very good questions. And I hope I've managed to provide you with useful patch management best practices and information. Please take a minute to complete our post-webinar survey. Of course, this is going to help us deliver better content to you in the next ones. And of course, until the next webinar, I wish you all good health and stay safe, both offline and online. Thank you very much.